Radford and Peter ran a race during which they both ran at constant speed. Radford began the race 30 meters ahead of Peter. After 3 minutes, Peter was 18 meters ahead of Radford. Peter won the race exactly 7 minutes after it began. How far from the finish line was Radford when Peter won? Well, let's draw some lines here. I think 3 lines should be sufficient, if you even need 3 lines. Okay, so now let's label this now. Peter and Radford, when they first begin, Peter is 30 meters behind, or Radford is 30 meters ahead. So that is the first part. Then the next part is at the 3-minute point. They say that Peter has caught up and he's now somewhat ahead. So if Peter is here, let's say Radford is here, and the difference between them is 18. And then at the 7-minute point is, I guess, the finish for Peter. And obviously Radford is at some point, and we'll just call that y, and that's what we're trying to figure out. So this is 30, this is 30, and then we actually don't know this distance here from there to there. So I'll just call it d, if I even need it. Okay, so now let's talk about this. When this happens, by the time Radford gets to here and Peter gets to here, the time is the same. So speed is equal to distance over time, and time is equal to distance over speed. So the time for Peter is equal to the time for Radford when they are both in those spots, and that is at 3 minutes. So using this formula right here, what is the TP? It would be the distance. So Peter, for Peter, it'd be all the way from the beginning. So we actually haven't labeled this, so I'll label that x. So it would be 30 plus 18, 30 plus x plus 18, I should say, all over the speed for Peter. And then the time for Radford, well, he's only going from here to here, so that's just x for the distance, and then the speed for Radford, and that is equal to 3 minutes, that is. So from this equation, we can just get that x is equal to 3sr, and then we can plug that in to this one. So from that one, 30 plus x plus 18 is equal to 3sp, if you cross multiply with the 3. And then we can substitute for x. This is just going to be 48 plus 3sr is equal to 3sp. And divide through by 3, and you'll get 16 plus sr is equal to sp. Okay. Now we have to take into consideration the 7-minute scenario. So at 7 minutes, again, the TP will equal the TR, and that equals 7. TP in this case, distance over speed, so that's going to be 30 plus d plus y, and over the speed of p. TR is the distance, which is just d, over the speed of r, and that is equal to 7. All right, so now we got to figure this out here. Well, using this cross multiplication, we get d is equal to 7sr, I should say. And then from this one, we can get that 30 plus d plus y is equal to 7sp. Well, I can substitute that d is equal to 7sr. Like that, and then let's keep the y, and then the 7 times sp, but sp is 16 plus sr, so I'll substitute that in like that, and this becomes 30 plus 7sr plus y, and then when I expand that, I get 7 times 16, which is 112 plus 7sr. Okay, Well, the 7 SRs in a very nice way cancel out, so y is equal to 112 minus 30, and that means y is equal to 82. So 82 is the distance that Radford is behind Peter when Peter wins the race, because that is what y represents. So number 19, the answer is D. The sound of thunder travels away from a lightning flash at 331 meters per second. Joe sees a lightning flash and then hears the thunder 12 seconds later. To the nearest tenth of a kilometer, how far away is Joe from the lightning flash? Well, he hears it 12 seconds later, and it's traveling at 331 meters per second, right? So if we want to figure out the distance, we have to just multiply the speed by the time, and that will give us distance. Remember, speed is equal to distance over time, and therefore distance is equal to speed times time. And that's exactly what I'm doing here, speed times time. So 331 times 12 is 3972 meters. Now they want it in kilometers, and that's approximately 4 kilometers. So number 11, the answer is C. As a fundraiser, Gaussville Elementary School bought 8 slice pizzas for $6.85 each. The school bought 55 pizzas and sold every slice. If each slice sold for $1, the school's profit was. So their cost of buying these pizzas was 55 times the $6.85. And that total cost is $376.75. Now their, profit, well, not the profit, but I guess the revenue, the amount of money that they made, is going to be 55 times 8 slices per pizza times $1 per slice, right? And that comes to 440. So now their profit is the revenue minus the cost, right? So that's 440 minus $376.75. And if you do that, you get $63.25. So number 12, the answer is D. Nicholas is counting the sheep in a flock as they cross a road. The sheep begin to cross the road at 2 p.m. and cross at a constant rate of 3 sheep per minute. After counting 42 sheep, Nicholas fell asleep. He wakes up an hour and a half later, at which point exactly half of the total flock has crossed the road. Since 2 p.m., how many sheep are there in the entire flock? So, let's make a timeline here. 2 p.m. is when this all begins. And we get to how many minutes here? Well, we are told 42 sheep. That's what we're told. And we also are told that these sheep basically cross at 3 sheep per minute. So that means 42 divided by 3 is how much time it has passed, and that's 14. So that means you get to about 2:14. Exactly. And then Nicholas falls asleep. After he falls asleep, he wakes up sometime later, and by that point, he wakes up, we have half the flock that has crossed. And they tell you that he wakes up an hour and a half later, so 90 minutes later, so that's 3:44. All right, 90 minutes. Well, first and foremost, how many sheep have crossed in that 90-minute time? Well, there's 3 sheep every minute, correct? So in 90 minutes, there would be 90 times 3, which is 270 sheep will have crossed during that 90 minutes that he was sleeping. So 42 plus 270 is the total amount of sheep that have crossed during this story, and that is 312. And they tell you that that represents half the total flock, 312. So how many sheep are there in the entire flock? Well, 2 times 3, 12, which is 624. So number 16, the answer is D. Lori took a 240-kilometer trip to Waterloo. On her way there, her average speed was 120 kilometers per hour. She was stopped for speeding, so on her way home, her average speed was 80 kilometers per hour. What was her average speed in kilometers per hour for the entire round trip? So going to Waterloo, 240 kilometers at 120 kilometers per hour, and that looks like it would be a 2-hour trip. Correct? On the way back, same distance, but this time speed is 80 kilometers per hour, and that looks like a 3-hour trip. Correct? So the total speed equals distance over time. Total speed or average speed, distance is 240 times 2, because it's there and back, and the time is 2 hours plus 3 hours, so 5-hour total. So that looks like 480 over 5, and that is equal to 96. So number 20, the answer is B. Harriet ran a 1,000-meter course in 380 seconds. She ran the first 720 of the course at a constant speed of 3. She ran the remaining part of the course at a constant speed of v. What is the value of v? Well, speed is equal to distance over time, or time is equal to distance over speed. The total amount of time is 380 seconds. And we got to break that up into 2 components. The first is when she runs 720 meters in a speed of 3 meters per second. And the second time comes from the remainder, which would be 1,000 minus 720. And then that speed they're telling me is v. Okay, I think I can solve this. So 380 is equal to 720 over 3 is 240 plus 280 over v. So that means 140 is equal to 280 over v. V is equal to 280 over 140, and therefore v is equal to 2. 2 is the answer. Number 12, the choice would be A. Harry charges $4 to babysit for the first hour. For each additional hour, he charges 50% more than he did for the previous hour. How much money in total would Harry earn for 4 hours of babysitting? So the first hour, $4, and then 50% more for the next hour, so that's 6. Basically, it's 4 times 1.5 to get that 6, by the way. And then the next hour, you take 6 and multiply that by 1.5, and you would get 9. And then finally, same thing, 9 times 1.5, and you will get 13.5. And you have to add all these up, and if you do, you get $32.50. So number 15, the answer is C. To rent a kayak and a paddle, there is a fixed fee to use the paddle, plus a charge of $5 per hour to use the kayak. For a 3-hour rental, the total cost is $30. What is the total cost for a 6-hour rental? So $5 an hour times the number of hours plus the cost of the paddle is basically how we determine the price. When the number of hours is 3, this becomes $30. So instead of H, I put 3 plus P. This allows me to figure out the cost of the paddle. So P is therefore equal to 15. Now we have to figure out the total cost for a 6-hour rental. So this time H is equal to 6. So it's going to be 5 times 6 plus P, which we just figured out was 15. So this is 30 plus 15, and that is equal to 45. So number 17, the answer is C. Scott challenges Chris to a 100-meter race. Scott runs 4 meters for every 5 meters that Chris runs. How far will Scott have run when Chris crosses the finish line? So our ratio of Scott to Chris is 4 over 5. So Scott over 100 meters, which is what Chris will have run when he crosses the finish line in a 100-meter race is equivalent to 4 over 5. So cross multiplying, you get 400 is equal to 5s, and therefore s is equal to 400 divided by 5, which is 80. So number 11, the answer is E. For the first 30 minutes of a trip, Deanna drove at a constant speed. For the next 30 minutes, she drove at a constant speed 20 kilometers faster than her original speed. If the total distance that she traveled was 100 kilometers, how fast did she drive for the first 30 minutes? So she is driving a certain amount of distance at one speed, and then obviously a certain amount of distance at a faster speed. So we are told that the first 30 minutes she drives at a certain speed, and I'll call that speed s. For the next 30 minutes, she drives 20 kilometers faster per hour, so s plus 20. And we use the formula speed is equal to distance over time, or distance is equal to speed times time. And they tell us that the total distance is 100 kilometers. Okay, well, let's break this up. Distance is the first distance plus the second distance. So the first distance is speed times time. So s times time, and the time is 30 minutes, but I want to convert it to hours since s is in kilometers per hour. So that's a half an hour. Then I have to add this distance, and that's going to be s plus 20 times time, and the time again is half an hour, so put a half right there. Now the total distance is 100, so instead of d, I can put 100, and this is s over 2, and this is s plus 20 over 2. Multiply through by 2, and we get 200 is equal to 2s plus 20, and therefore 180 is equal to 2s. S, therefore, is equal to 90. And therefore, number 17, the answer is B.